Hi everyone, welcome back to Grateful Acres Farmstead. We're going to do a canning instructional video kind of today. We're going to walk through some of the different things and talk about different ways of canning and like the different canners, what you would can with those, and probably going to add doing some actual canning in them. Let's get started. And I do have some notes so that I don't go down the rabbit hole that we're going to talk about. So if you see me looking down or reaching, that's what I'm kind of doing. First, I do want to say a couple things. Do your own research. This is just a general overview. I'm telling you what I do. I am self-taught. I did not grow up canning with mom and grandma and great-grandma. So this is something I want you to feel confident about. You can do this. You can definitely water bath, steam can, pressure can. You can do it. So I don't want you to be afraid of any of your canners. Let's get some food put on the shelf so that we have some fast food, that we don't have to go through the drive-through line, or maybe somebody has a new baby and you need a quick meal to take to them. Anything. If everyone in the house is not feeling well and you just need a quick meal, it's a great way to do those kind of things. So let's get started here. All right. For tools that you're going to need, and this is just a general overview for all of the canning procedures. We're going to go over jar sizes. So all the ones that I show you here, this is a regular mouth. This is a 4-ounce jar. Teeny tiny. Not a whole lot of use for these because, I mean, really, what's the point in having 500 4-ounce jars? This would be perfect for maybe jalapenos or diced green chilies, something like that that you don't use a lot of. But 4 ounces is still kind of tiny. Just think in your grocery store what you might see in a 4-ounce container, 4-ounce can, then that would probably be about that size. This is an 8-ounce jelly jar. It also is a regular mouth. This is, of course, a jelly jar, so it's for jellies. Or if you like a larger amount of jalapenos, or maybe you want a smaller amount of something else, like maybe a bone broth, or whatever the case may be. This is also an 8-ounce, and it is a regular mouth. It's a shorter jar, if you can see the difference. They both hold the same, but this one, of course, is wider and shorter. This one's taller, skinnier. This is a 12-ounce jar. Not a lot of use for the 12-ounce jar. You can, but most people don't use it. When you are canning, they have times for jelly jars, and they have times for pints. When you go in between those two sizes, you're going to use the longer time. Okay, you don't break it off, and if one is 5 minutes and one's 15, you don't do 10. You would do 15 minutes for the 12-ounce as well. All right, regular mouth pint jar. You see how it kind of has more of a shoulder and tapers in a little bit? Okay, this is going to be about the same size as like a can of peas at the store, something to that effect. This is a quart jar. It also is a regular mouth, so you're going to see the taper at the top of the jar here, at the neck, okay? These I typically use for liquids. I don't put a lot of canned meats in them. One, I don't usually can meats in a quart jar because that's a lot of meat. It's about 2 pounds, and our family's not that large. But even with this pint jar, fits about a pound of meat. But I don't like to do meats in, like I said, the narrow mouth. This is great for bone broth, soups, vegetables that you can pour out of there. Nothing you have to dig out or maybe scrape the sides of the jar for, maybe any fat or anything that may have stuck to the inside of the jar. Just personal preference. You definitely can in these, you know, whatever you want. I'm just telling you what I don't. All right. This is an 8-ounce jar, but it's short and fat. It's a wide mouth. Okay. These are really nice. Not necessarily, I mean, I do jellies. We don't do a lot of jellies, but it's nice because it fits on a shelf a little bit better sometimes. It's all personal preference and what you can find. Sometimes it's just the most common sizes are what you're going to find in the stores. This is a wide mouth pint, 16 ounces. And these are what I like to can meat in because it's just so easy to scrape the insides, dump it out. This is a pint and a half. These jars are fairly hard to find sometimes, and sometimes you'll find a bunch of them. It's really just hit or miss. These fit asparagus in them. I do not can asparagus. I don't like the texture of it. I just like it fresh. These do work really well for bacon. Cooked bacon, rolled up in parchment, stuffed in there, fits perfectly. I do pre-cook my bacon before I can it, so these really are nice for that. I don't use these a whole lot. One, because it's harder to find the jars, and second, because it doesn't fit a whole lot of what our family size would use. Be good for beans. This is a wide mouth quart jar. You can see how it's wide there. There's really not much of a taper here at the neck part. These are great for, of course, my chili. These work great for any kind of soups or anything like that, but it just depends on what jars I also have available at the time. These are half gallon. These are not typically used. Some people use them to put juice in, but they'll only fit in the larger canners. So this is my 16 quart. It won't fit in there because you can't put the lid on. It's too high. But most people don't can in these. All right, next we're going to talk about the funnels. So you really want a funnel. You don't have to have one, but you're going to sure save yourself a lot of mess. This is plastic, stainless steel. The only difference that I have in these is this one, you can see, is much narrower here in the width or the diameter, and that the little part that goes into the jar, I don't know what this would be called, but anyway, you can see it's much shorter on the one versus the other. This one is wider, but it's shorter all over. I prefer this because usually when you're trying to pour it in here, it kind of slops up the side sometimes when you're doing chili or those kind of things, sauces. So I don't like to do that. Personal preference. Just make sure you have the tools that you need. Jar lifter. So you'll hold it like this and you'll open and close to lift out the jars. And it goes around the neck here, like this. Definite need to have a jar lifter. Some of these tools you can figure something else out to make it work for you, but you have to have a jar lifter. You can't get those out of the canner without it. All right, you have your regular mouth metal lid and your wide mouth metal lid. Both are button top, and that means that there's a little button basically on. Well, you may not be able to see, but there's a little button here, and if you press that, when it's canned, it will be depressed in. It will indent, and this will be locked down that you won't hear any type of button like that. You'll see when I'll show you one. So those are the two on those. They also make plastic reusable canning lids. They have a Harvest Right, or I think it's Harvest Right, and they also have Tatler lids. Those are basically, it's the plastic, lid, flat, but the rubber is an actual, like a gasket, a seal. It's not attached to the lids. The metal lids used to be, you had to boil them. Not any longer. They're telling you can put it right onto the jar. I personally clean mine and then put them in hot water. And I let them sit in the hot water only to soften up the rubber gasket. I have not really used the reusable like Tatler lids. I kind of used them once when they first came out, and there's a learning curve, and I just didn't want to. I didn't want to mess with it at the time. I might go back to that, especially because they are reusable, and let's try to be the best good stewards of what we've been provided. All right. So this is to get your lids out. It's a magnet. So when you have your lids sitting in the water, you want to reverse the direction they go. So you want one like this, and then stack the other on top, and then like this, all the way up with however many you have, because otherwise when you have them all sitting in the water like that, they kind of suction together, and I don't think do as good a job. So this is going to be used when they're sitting in the hot water. You do that, and you place it on top of the jar like this, and then you're going to put your, I didn't bring my rings, just a moment. So as that's sitting there, a lot of people will just leave this sitting on top once they put it on the jar, and they'll put the ring down, and then you're going to tighten it fingertip tight. And you'll want to put your finger back on it so it doesn't keep spinning. Okay, so fingertip tight. This is a jar that's been canned. It was chili that I canned the other day. Can you see where... See, it doesn't bounce back up. There's not the same sound. And you can hold it by there, by the lid, to make sure that it's sealed as well. All right. They make the tool that is called the debubbler. I don't know where mine is. I don't usually use it because I use whatever I have on hand at the time. This is just a spatula. You want to use it when you're doing soups or broth. You're not going to need it because there's nothing that needs debubbled. When you are doing anything that's fluid like that, you don't need to worry about it because there's not going to be bubbles in it. When you're doing chili, something that's a little more, has a little more thickness to it, you're going to want to use a tool, not metal. Please don't use metal. Chopsticks, spatulas, handle, something like that. And you're going to go around and you're going to, basically, I'll have to show you, get the air bubbles out. Okay? I do it while I still have my funnel on so that I'm not getting all kinds of mess on the rim of the jar. Okay? So you're going to go around and do this. Now, the debubbler tool on the other edge, the other end of it, has a little stair step, notches cut out. And it is to measure your head space. Okay? So your head space is 1 inch for pressure canned foods, which is low acid. Meats, veggies, bone broth. Let's see. Sorry, I just don't want to be scattered all over. Soups, beans. Okay. So you'll want to make sure that there's an inch head space. So I've marked it off on here with a ruler where an inch is. After your jar is full, you're going to measure so that it's 1 inch for pressure canned foods, 1/2 inch for most fruits, like if you're canning peaches or those type of things. Jams and jellies are typically 1/4 inch. You're going to want to check your recipe. It's all going to be different. Do your own research on each recipe. You're going to want to make sure you have the right amount of time, the right altitude for where you live, and those type of things. You can always consult your manual, and if you don't have one, you may find it online on like Google. A lot of times you can print those up for free. So you're going to want to then measure. When you have your jars and you've washed them, you just want to make sure that you're going around the rim with your finger before you wash them. You want to make sure there are not any nicks out of it or chips, any kind of problem with the glass on the top. You don't want that. So you always make sure you've checked that first, okay? first type of canning we're talking about is steam canning. So steam canning is approved. The methods I'm talking about today are approved methods. There are rebel canners. There's lots of rules of my kitchen, my rules. You do your research and what you feel confident doing. You want to be safe and you want to use clean hands, clean utensils, clean area. You know, make sure your stuff is clean. If it needs sterilized, then sterilize it. But most of the things anymore do not need to be sterilized, like the jars. When you're pressure canning, it will sterilize it as it's cooking. However, you want clean jars. When you are water bathing, canning anything longer than, I believe, 10 minutes, then you don't need to sterilize the jars. So, you know, you still want clean everything. Why take the time to do all of your stuff, grow your food or buy it, spend good money on it, have all those supplies, and have all the dirty stuff? It's a waste of your time. So, all right. Steam canning is for high acid foods. Fruits, relishes, pickles. It's the same as water bath, 4 times. And if you're at sea level, how far you are above sea level, high altitude, that depends on how long you are canning it for, the times that you're canning them for. But steaming is, as the water boils, it produces the steam which fills the canner. The steam canner heats the jars of food, and it's typically 210 to 212 degrees in the canner. All right? For a water bath canner, it's the same premise. Steam canners use approximately 3 or 4 quarts of water. I do not have a steam canner because I don't use a steam canner. The water bath canner, you need to have 1 to 2 inches of water over the top of the jar. So, that means you're going to have water about this high over the top that needs to be boiling for the allotted amount of time. When steam canning, you typically don't go over, I believe, 45 minutes, because then you could lose too much of your water because all that steam is escaping from that unit. All right. And then pressure canning, it uses pressure to create the temperatures, average 240 degrees Fahrenheit and above boiling to effectively can your food. The pressure in there, it makes it so hot and it cans your food. Okay? There are 2 types of pressure canners in general. Well, there's 2 types, but there's a few extra brands. I do not have an All-American. I have Prestos. All-American is like top of the line. You know, most people consider it top of the line. It is a beautiful unit. I do not own one, but I do own a couple of Presto pressure canners that have worked wonderfully, and it's a great pressure canner. There's a couple of parts with it. This is a 16-quart pressure canner, Presto. This is the tray that goes in the bottom. You must have something in the bottom that your jars are not sitting on the bottom of it. Okay, there's 3 lines. The bottom line is where you would fill it for pressure canning. Okay, pressure canning. There's a difference. You may use these as pressure cookers, just like an Instant Pot or whatever Cosori brand what they have in pressure canners. The top 2 lines are for when you are canning, if you're going to make a big batch of bone broth, which I do, or if you're going to cook rice in here, or whatever you're going to do that you're pressure cooking food, pressure cooking, then those lines, you don't want to go above those lines for whatever your manual would say. Okay? So, you're going to have the same thing in the larger one. It's just a bigger unit. You will want to put this on the bottom. This will hold, I believe, okay, so 7 quarts, wide mouth or narrow mouth. Okay? So you can fit 7-quart jars, either of these, in the canner. 6 are on the outside, 1 in the middle. I believe, so You can usually get 9 to 10, and I say 9 to 10 of the regular mouth in there because depending on the brand jar you have, some are skinnier than others. And you can see the difference. So it really just depends. You're going to get at least 9. Some of them you can get 10. The wide mouth, I believe you can get 8, but I will put it on the screen if that's different. So you can get about 8 wide mouth jars in there. The 23 quart fits the same amount, it's the same diameter. However, you can double stack pint jars in here. So when you have them together, you would put one on the bottom. Okay, you already have your tray in the bottom, but you're going to use an extra one of these. You need one of these to separate the 2 layers. So you put your 4 quarts of water in here up to the line. I put a permanent marker on those indentations so it's easier for me to see, because it's silver on silver. You're trying to fill it with water. It's kind of hard. So you fill it with your 8 jars in there. Then you're going to put this down, and then you stack these jars on top so that you'll have a separate layer. So you can fit up to 20 pint jars in this. So, which makes it really nice if you're doing 20 pints of hamburger or sausage or chicken or whatever you're doing, you can do a lot at once. So that makes it extremely nice to have the larger one. I use the larger one to make my bone broth because I do a lot at once, so I don't have to do it as often. Because when we process chickens, or if I get chicken carcasses and stuff from a friend of ours that does meat birds, that's a lot, and so I want to free up the freezer space. I'll do a large batch at once, and then I'll can it all in quarts and in pints. So this way I could double stack pints, and I can put quarts in the smaller canner. You can definitely do it with one. I'm just saying I've had them both for different reasons. I do not like to have a lot of extra appliances or pots and pans around because we have a smaller space. So I use this pressure canner as a pressure canner and a pressure cooker. I do that for both, and I use it for water bath canning when necessary. I also do steam bath canning in my pressure canner. This is going to have steam that's up to 240 degrees Fahrenheit. You only need 210 to 212 for steam canning. So you have this entire thing full of 240 degree steam that's going to do the same thing. Why have 4 different appliances all over the place just taking up room and serving one purpose? Okay, let's multi-purpose tools here. I believe that's it. So I do also have this water bath canner. And the reason I have this is we used to do a lot of birthday parties with family, and putting punch in here is really nice. The kids can get their own drink. It's got a pour spout that comes out the side somewhere. Right here, there is a pour spout that you attach in there, like with a bolt and nut type fitting. So it makes it really nice for that. What you would do is you would set the spout up over the sink where it plugs in. And then when you're done canning, you can let the water out so you're not having to lift it off the stove and carry, lots of water to the sink. This is nice when I maybe have both canners going. I can plug this in and do some water bath canning. Most of what I do is pressure canning. I don't do a lot of like jams and jellies, that kind of thing. These are nice, but again, not necessary because I use the others. If you're needing to do it electric, these are really nice because you can set it, close to the sink. The only problem I have with it is that this cord is not very long. So, yes, if you're going to sit it, but most people may not have an outlet close enough to the sink that this would reach. That's my only problem with it. Because my outlet's not close, so then you have to scoot it across. And if you want any more information on this canner, I'd be happy to give it to you. Pause. Alright, this is the lid for the pressure canner. There's a few things, and I'll put the names on the screen so that there's no misunderstanding as to what I said. I'm going to take this one apart, if I can get it apart. I might have to have some help. So we can't get this off, which is a good thing. You really don't want it off. So when you're checking it, you always want to put 2 fingers on this side, 2 on this side, and you want to twist opposite directions just to make sure it's tight. This is off my older canner. I replaced that part. So this is how it goes, on the canner. You always want to make sure it's tight, okay? This is going to the steam is going to build up and the pressure is going to build up in there, and it's going to push it into the up position so that you will know that you have enough pressure to start, to put your weight on, okay? This is a dial gauge, not a weighted gauge canner. All right, second thing is, this is your sealing ring. You always want to just check it, make sure there's nothing like, if this has chips out of it in here, you don't want to do that. You always want to have a spare on hand just in case if you're going to get your canning done. There are notches that go around the sides, but the open end here should not have any kind of chips or cracks or anything like that on it. So before you can, you're going to put that down in there. This is a emergency pressure lock. Can you see it? Okay, so it goes in this little hole. I took it out only to show you. Okay, you don't want to take this in and out all the time, but if it gets gook in there, you want to take it out and wash it. You're just going to simply put it through the back there in the hole. Can you see it? And you just want to push it up, not all the way through. And you want to make sure that it has enough that you can move it back and forth. Okay? This is the vent. You want to make sure that you can see through there and make sure there's daylight that you can see. This little tool right here, I got this off Amazon. It's just a little brush. You can also use the dental picks from, I think Walmart sells them. It's like a little dental brush, floss pick. Take that and you put it through, and you just want to make sure that there's no gook. That is very important, that there's nothing in here. Okay? This dial gauge does come out also, or I have turned it because I don't like this to be facing my floor. For the reason of, when it kind of starts going like this, there's water kind of spitting out and it will spit on my floor. So I actually, so that it lines up, I turned my gauge the other direction. And it's just a bolt on the bottom. You can loosen it, and if you need to take it out, just tighten it back on. Or if you need to replace it, it's very easy to do. And this can come out, well, I guess it might. I've never had to take this out. So, anyway, that's your lid. When you put it on your canner, you see, there's close and open and a little V. That little V matches up with the little V on one of the handles. Matches up with the V on one of the handles. When you're ready, you're going to take your lid. Can you see? You're going to put the V and match it up with the handle and set it on there. Then you're going to twist it closed. You want a bit of resistance because that means you're getting a good seal. Okay? I hope that tutorial was helpful for you. It was not completely in depth with the jars. I just wanted to give you an overview of the different canning types as well as tools used in canning. I really hope you try it. It really is satisfying to have some canned foods on the shelf to accompany fresh foods during growing season, and just have that security. Please share this video with anyone you think might enjoy it. Give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. It's really appreciated. Have a blessed day. Bye.